right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get started with the town hall. It's 12:02, and so I want to make sure we stay on time. I'm going to kick off the town hall, and then once I'm done kicking it off, I'll turn it over to Vice President Terry Albertson. So I'm going to start with an update on admissions, which this data is a couple days old. And as the admissions team will tell you, it changes on a daily basis, which is good news. It just shows you where we are, point in time, 25, which is this cycle, and then where we were at the same time last year, the year before that, and the year before that. So Admitted Students Day is April 4th, and that's an all-hands-on-deck event. It's crucial that we yield as many of those students as we have admitted that come to that event, and then obviously we're working on yield for all students, not just those that come to Admitted Students Day. So you can see that we are ahead in total deposits from where we were last year, point in time, and we're behind where we were in 2023. The census enrollment, remember fall of 2023, we had about 404 students at census. This in 2024, this fall, we had 381. Or 376 rather, and so we want to make sure that our deposits are sufficient, that we reduce the melt, and we have a good number of students this fall. As Terry will talk to you, our budget is directly dependent on the revenues that those students bring into us. So this just gives you a sense of where we are, so we need everybody contributing to all of the yield work that we're going to be doing. We also have retention things happening. This shows you our census cohort count for first-time, first-year students, the retention to the first spring term, so from fall to spring, and then enrolled in their second year. So that you can see that from the students that started with us as first-time, first-year students, we retained only about 89% of those students into the spring. So we lost a large number of students, and that also has a revenue impact as well. We were making great ground over the past several years in increasing our retention, and we want to make sure that the students that are here today, first year all the way to juniors, are retained into next fall. And so I know that the student affairs team, student success, career services, and all the faculty are working diligently to keep track of these students and keep them enrolled as we go into the fall. All right, so we've got two new trustees coming on to the board that brings C-suite experience onto the board. We have Sherelle Dandy, who graduated in 2007. She is an attorney with Klein Spector. Rich Stipa, who is a retired CEO of TrueMark, graduated in 1981. Both of those folks are joining our board. So it's very exciting to see the breadth and the depth of skills on our trustee community growing and really contributing to the governance work of the institution. We've had some transformational gifts supporting APEX, the Course and Family Foundation, a gift from Joan and Don Parlee and Arlene McLean. So we've got a total of $9.4 million raised already this year for APEX, which is extraordinary. Our Marcom team has been spreading the good news about APEX and about all things Ursinus, and as a result, we've got a gold award, a gold copy for the website redesign, and a silver for the admissions view book. So again, extraordinary work by our team. This year we had 300 plus participants in MLK Week, which is really wonderful to see all of the activity and all the community built around that week. Our opening ceremonies, as well as the essay contest with the Swanksville Elementary School students, which is probably one of the most heartwarming pieces of what we do in MLK Week. And we've hired 50 new employees since November 1st, which is, again, welcome to all of our new colleagues who are here with us today. And then we launched APEX at Ursinus, right? It's on its way, and our students who are coming in this fall will be the inaugural class, which is, again, quite exciting. So let me see if I can get this thing to go. Whoops, where? All right, so APEX in action. We've got career communities launching this fall, career coaches and advisors being hired currently for this fall. Faculty are working on the innovation centers and the hubs associated with that so that those can start work this fall. And then we've got experiential learning grants, and that's a guarantee to each one of our first-year students that they will have funds to support their experiential learning. So all very good news happening very quick. We have some terrific student accomplishments since our last town hall. Bryson Budgeon got the Watson Fellowship, which is great news for him and for us and for Watson in the world. Fulbright Grant semifinalists, we've got seniors Abby Boehm and Danielle Hanna, Grace Costanza, and Logan Lentz. So that's very exciting to have that many Fulbright semifinalists. We had multiple academic and athletic spring break trips that were international. And we see lots of pictures from those, but also lots of learning that happened on those. We had the grand opening of the Music and Design Recording Studio, which gives Ursinus another piece of infrastructure that is not available at our competitor institutions, that supports a degree program that is also not available at other institutions. So it distinguishes us further. We have a graduate partnership with Newman University, which gives our students access to 9 advanced degrees. And we've got new programs being launched, like the interdisciplinary minor in artificial intelligence and a concentration in graphic design. So a lot of things happening in a very short period of time, all positive, and building the momentum for the college as we go forward. Our football and field hockey teams qualified for NCAA tournaments. For men's wrestling, Anthony Cerulli won the 174-pound weight class for the Centennial Championships. 6 women wrestlers qualified for the NCWWC Championships. Kaylee Roscoe and Chloe Charlesworth won individual titles, which is also big news for our college and gets us and our name out there. Women's volleyball qualified for the first Centennial Conference tournament in the program's history. And that is also extraordinary news for our women volleyball players who have been working their butts off to get that to happen. And our gymnasts, Erin Rowe and Megan Matucci, qualified as individuals for the NCGA National Championships. So we look forward to seeing them and the medals that they bring back. So, all good news, lots of great things happening since our last town hall. This community really rallying around the opportunities presented to the college by Apex and by all of your hard work, and welcoming our new colleagues into the fold. And so I'm going to turn it over to Terry to talk about financial sustainability and to go into some depth with that. And once Terry is done, both she and I and the senior leadership team and anyone else that can answer questions are here and available to do that. So I'll see you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, President Hannigan. I'm honored to be here with you today to speak about my favorite topic, financial sustainability. I understand your passion might not align with my passion, but I appreciate you kind of listening to me as we talk about our institution's future. We have a QR code. If you have questions, you can type them in, or certainly you can raise your hand. So this, I guess, go forward. Nope. Okay. So first, I want to thank everybody in the room. This past year was a difficult budget year, and everyone really leaned in, did a lot of hard work, closed a $10 million deficit for this fiscal year, and that was just phenomenal. So please give yourselves a round of applause. We couldn't have done it without all of you. So let's get started. So I'm approaching Ursinus's future with cautious optimism. To help frame our conversation today, I want you guys to think about your own finances, right? You hopefully don't spend more money than you make, right? You try to save money for the future, for emergencies, and you obviously save money for your retirement, so one day you can, go off on your merry way. Similarly, at Ursinus, right, we have to live within our means. We can't really spend more money than we bring in. We have to save for emergencies. We have to save for rainy days, and our endowment is sort of like our retirement. It's there to sustain future generations, the difference being that we take a draw every year, and that helps support our operations. On occasion, we need more capital improvements, so we might take on some debt, similarly to how you would take on a mortgage and buy a house for yourself and your family. And if you don't live within your means, you run into problems. So let's get started. So the questions I'm going to try to answer today is, why is financial sustainability important? What's going on in higher education? What's next? What's our current situation? What's next? And how can each of you help? So if we think about why is it important? So we're in the business of empowering students to become independent, responsible, and thoughtful leaders through a rigorous liberal arts education and a supportive, inclusive community. That's our mission. We cannot fill our mission without being financially sustainable. If we weren't financially sustainable, we wouldn't be in business. We're just starting the process of our Middle States accreditation, and we had a woman in from one of the vice presidents at Middle States and one of the things we asked her, what's the top reason that schools don't get accredited? And she said the number one top reason now, hasn't always been this way, is their lack of being financially viable. So if we aren't accredited by Middle States, we can't award degrees, we can't get federal funding. It's really a grim look if we're not positive with Middle States. And this is really ensuring our long-term success as a viable institution. So a few years back, Robin introduced her strategic framework, and she laid out 3 drivers of change. And I'm highlighting the one in black because that's really kind of the lane that I'm in, and that has to do with financial reality and really getting our finances in the right shape. So that's really kind of explains why. So now let's talk about what's going on in higher education. And I saw this from Hanover Research, and I really thought this was like spot on what we're dealing with. So the first has to do with academic program innovation. Colleges across the country are rethinking and realigning their academic offerings to focus on career-connected learning. Sound familiar? That's exactly what we're trying to do with APEX and our response to helping our students prepare for their lives. I'm going to jump around. Second is evolving student support. Growing challenges with increasing investments in student development to help our students stay on track and graduate. We're seeing this in our retention numbers, and I know we're placing a lot of focus on helping to retain our students and helping them thrive. Third, financial realities and reshaping budget. There's a lot of volatility in the sector. Colleges are leaning into data-driven approaches to really help understand physical health and long-term solvency. This is what I live and breathe every day, and hopefully moving Ursinus onto the path of financial sustainability. Increasing college aid and access. Despite enrollment pressures, institutions are finding creative ways to reach more diverse populations. This is certainly our commitment to the American Talent Initiative, and it's one way that we're opening doors and expanding opportunities. And finally, strengthening the institution branding. It's a competitive and skeptical marketplace up there. We must articulate our values. Our Marcom team is rising to the occasion, refining our brand strategy, enhancing our website, and launching advertising campaigns that really help us look unique in the marketplace. So financial sustainability really has to stay as our top priority. So what's going on right now? our current situation. So first, I just want to kind of walk back and talk about what grounds me. Every decision I make, I try to make it with looking at students, faculty and staff, and our infrastructure. And those three things, I think, have to work together when we're making decisions with respect to financial sustainability. So this is a little walk down where we walked into before this fiscal year. So the green line represents our operating revenues, and the blue line represents our operating expenses. So what you see is there are more years where our operating expenses are exceeding our operating revenues. And in some of the years, if you look at FY20 and FY21, 22, that little increase in revenues, that's really misleading. It's skewed by COVID money that we got in, one-time COVID money. It's skewed by extra draws that we took on our endowment. So let's look at this on a net basis. So this is just comparing revenues and expenses. So if we look at it on a net basis, this looks a little more drastic, right? Very stark image of our net losses just kind of going down. And if you look cumulative gains and losses, just over the period presented, we had more than $20 million of net operating losses if you add it all through that year. This pattern underscores that, we face some financial challenges, and it's urgent that we align our operations. Looking at our endowment, our retirement, the chart on the left shows our total endowment balance. In FY18, just a little bit under $140 million. Moving to FY24, we're approaching $170 million. And then on the right shows the draws that we've taken out each year. So industry best practices say that we should draw about 4 to 5% of our endowment balance over a number of previous quarters. And that's really a sustainable draw. So that you can continue to grow the endowment balance. What we've done is we've taken, at least in the past 2 years, closer to 7%. So we're drawing more than we should. And then if you look at what's circled in red, those are kind of the COVID years where we took about $6 million extra in special draws. Now let's imagine if we could turn back time and we didn't take that money, our endowment would be $9 million higher. So if you have a bigger endowment balance, you have a bigger percentage that you can draw money out. So these higher draws enabled us to address some short-term needs, but probably hurt us from the long-term basis. So when we all experienced a very difficult FY25 budgeting process, the year we're in, we were faced with really incredible tough decisions. And I thank my present and previous BLRT members, the Budget Long-Term Planning Committee, that really helps with bringing their ideas, their thoughtfulness, and really looking at the college as a whole and helping to make decisions. When we began FY25, we really started in a negative cash position. So if you look at our financial statements at June 30th, 2024, our effective cash was negative $1.5 million. So what did we do? We all felt impact through these really hard decisions, whether it was saying goodbye to a valued colleague, the reduction that we all personally took in our 403B plans, or giving up our emeriti contributions. These decisions weren't made lightly, but our plan was, we're selling some non-essential real estate to generate some cash. We did get the board to pass a cash neutral budget, meaning the cash that we're bringing in this year is equal to the cash that's going out the door this year. We did a bond refinance, which the bond refinance provided, it was more strategic in nature. It provided cash savings in this year we're in of $1.7 million and $13 million over the next 6 years. And we got some new money to help with some infrastructure needs. We're investing more in our infrastructure. We're negotiating cost savings. We're trying to be less reliant on our endowment. And we're trying to fund Apex all at the same time. Lots of things going on. So this is where we stand as of today. A little hard to read, but the column on the left is our budget. The column on our right is where we stood as of March 20th, and I projected it out to the end of the year. So we're projecting about a $3.8 million loss, but it is roughly an $800,000 cash positive. So when we look at it, if we go back to our chart, so now I'm going to add the impact of this year. Fabulous, right? We're getting right close to break even. We're closing the gap between our revenues and expenses, all very positive things. So to everyone here, thank you. So you have to applaud for yourself again. So I also want to celebrate some of the projects that we were able to do. Complete Lower Wismer, football locker room, scoreboard, whisper room, Ritter lobby. We're doing a second phase of Lower Wismer. We're renovating, soon to open, 476 Main Street that we're going to house some of our prospective students. We were able to do a wireless upgrade on campus. We introduced Grubhub. We have our Amazon Just Walkout store, the Able Scholar space. And yes, I had to put in the new dishwasher. This dishwasher, it looks the same, but the dishwasher was $500,000. And the robot smoothie machine. And then summer projects. In the fall, we're going to open the Bloomberg Lab in the library. We're upgrading the Elliott and the Cloak House. We're doing more locker rooms, Hall of Fame, flooring and lighting in FLB. The Reimert, I know you've all seen the supports in there. It's going to be a tight project, but this summer we're going to do all the cement work, the stairs, and the railings. That's much needed, and we're going to continue to upgrade classrooms and replace 2 elevators. So here's some pictures. So there's the smoothie machine if you haven't seen it. There's Lower Wismer, our Amazon Just Walkout store, the dishwasher, the whisper room, and most recently, Ritter Hall, the locker room, and this is going to be phase 2 of Lower Wismer, which will be opening up very soon. It's more of a quiet space. If you look on the left, there's more seating, but then there's also like a little stage, a nice space for our students. And these are just, these aren't the actual designs, but in the Mirren Library, when you walk in, we're going to have the Bloomberg terminal, which will be also a computer classroom that will open up in the fall. And renovations to the Cloak and Elliott. So what is next? So Unfortunately, now we're going to move to the not so good news of my presentation. So we have pulled together our preliminary draft budget for FY26, and this is only draft, our very, very first draft. But we have our operating revenues decreasing by $3 million, and we have our expenses going up by $4 million. So let me pause and talk a little bit about the operating revenues. So the operating revenues are based upon an incoming class of 350, which everything that we're doing is pointing that will be better than 350, but I'm trying to be very conservative, right? It's easy to add things than to take them away. And I know our admissions team is out there every day doing great things. The other thing that we also have to think about with our revenues is we are graduating our largest generating revenue class. Of all the 4 classes, what's leaving right now is the largest revenue. In addition, as Robin had mentioned, we didn't do that great with attrition from the fall to the spring. I think in all the classes, we lost about 100 students. So I'm going to do this, now put on your brains here. So imagine all of those 100 students were first years. And from fall to spring, we lose 100 students. And let's say we were able to retain them for all 4 years that they were at Ursinus. How much more revenue would we have in 4 years? Anybody want to guess? $10? You're right. $10 million. So losing 100 students, that's an incredible number, right? And when you have, same ways, like when you have a lower class coming in the first year, you have to live with that for 4 years unless you can pick up some transfers along the way. So that's the revenue number. Let's talk about the expense number. In the expense number, I'm including a 2% raise for everyone. I'm also including that we restore the 403B benefits back to 7%, including that we restore the emeriti benefits, assuming that, some of our health benefits are going to go up a little bit more. They always track a little bit higher than normal, so no changes really to the health benefits. And then that takes the expenses of what everyone had submitted through BLRP, which was probably about 1 to 2% higher than the previous year overall. But if we take all this into consideration, this is going to put us at an $11 million loss. And that's probably about a $5 to $6 million cash loss. We'll go backwards. So we have work to do. We have levers to pull. The work's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. But some of the levers we could pull, certainly more revenues coming in the door. We could stay at the 4% 403B contribution and not move up to the 7%. We could potentially hold salaries at the same level. We could fund, we take a portion of our operations through depreciation and put them back into our campus with new capital projects. And we have been behind in doing that. Right now we're budgeting at 50%. We could put less back into our campus. We could go to the board and ask for an additional endowment draw to get us through the bump. But with this, right, so it's a hard time, but we're also trying to do something so special with Apex and really trying to keep the momentum up so that we have the runway to bring the students in to really help us thrive as an institution long term. So I don't have the answers for you today. What I can tell you is, to the extent that, you can save money and not spend your budgets this year, do that. If there are things that you can go back and look at your budgets and cut back on, let us know. If there's ways that you think that we can operate more efficiently, additional revenue streams, any ideas, reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to anybody on the BLRP committee. So we have probably a month to 6 weeks to really work on this budget, and I'm confident that we'll get where we need to be. It's going to be a little difficult, but we're going to get there. I just want to take a walk through enrollment trends, just so you can see what's happening. So this takes our enrollment from 20 to what we're projecting for 26. And you can see over these years, we've had some little ups and downs, but for the most part, we're trending in the wrong direction in terms of enrollment. And when you look at this in terms of dollars, so from FY20 to FY26, we're only looking like roughly $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million of revenue increase. And if you do the math, we should be increasing our revenue like 5% every year, right? We all want to make more money every year. Our expenses go up. The cost of living goes up. What it costs to our goods that we buy at the college, they go up every year. So clearly, our expenses are outpacing our revenues. And this is just tuition and fees. When you look at room and board's a little bit of a different story. Over the course of time, we've been able to increase our room and board at a much larger percentage. I think when I did the math, it's in the high 20s, pushing 30%. So we've been successful at helping to grow that, but not as much on the tuition side. So when we make decisions, and when I make decisions, I'm just not looking at the short term, right? I know we're making some hard short-term decisions, but I'm really looking at the medium and long term. And I look at all these items on the slide here. So, for example, when I look at our campus, I'll just pull this one out as an example. So I know our facilities team, right now we're doing a facilities assessment review, which engineers are looking at all of our buildings and coming up with kind of everything that we have to do to maintain and improve our buildings, and how are we going to do that. And then Steve and I will help plan that out over the next 5 years so that we make sure we have the money to do that. Similarly, we're looking at the same thing on the energy side, right? Our plant and how we get energy on campus. How sustainable is it from a sustainability perspective? Can we use our energy more efficiently? So we're making short-term decisions, but we're also looking at things on a longer horizon to make ourselves a stronger institution. So the last question is, how can you help? So I'm going to first say to be positive, right? It's going to be a tough year, but stay positive. I believe in Apex. I believe in all the work that the academic side of the house is doing. I believe in our brand strategy and what marketing's doing. What Michelle's team is doing in advancement is just incredible. I don't think we've seen this type of one-time donations, these large transformational donations It's really incredible. So it's going to be a rough year, but don't give up hope. So some of the things that I would love everyone to do is think about we before me, right? You know, it's often easy, like we have to look at decisions of how they impact Ursinus as a whole. Every student matters, yield, retention, and I know that everybody in this room helps with that, and every interaction that we have with a prospective student, a current student, can help with that yield retention. I'll duck when I say this, don't give up on Oracle. Oracle is a good system, and it's going to help us really understand the data and help us to make good, financially strong decisions. Think ways of being more efficient, identify cost savings, develop new revenue ideas. This one's a tough one. Remember that space belongs to the college. We are trying to put together kind of an inventory of all our space, and we want to look at space from a holistic perspective, not necessarily this is my office, this is my classroom. You know, we want to be able to utilize our space to be able to have a great experience for our students and also help to generate revenues for the college. Remember, facilities lead all capital projects. We like to make it collaborative and include everybody's views, but really facilities has to be the captain on all projects. We have to focus on things that are important. The one thing that I hadn't mentioned is we are doing an HR, a human resource assessment across the campus that's going to really look at everybody's wages, the salary bands, to make sure we have that everyone's paid accordingly and that it's equitable across the campus. So I want everybody to be patient while we're going through that. I know a lot of people have been asking for their positions to be benchmarked. So we're going to try to put that on hold till we have a comprehensive study done across the college. Grow the Ursinus brands, work across divisions, and, you know, unfortunately, this is the new normal in higher education. We are not alone. I mean, read the news. And it's a lot of big schools. I mean, we have Penn State closing branch campuses. St. Joe's was just in the news this week with doing an early retirement and potential layoffs. So, you know, even some of the larger schools aren't insulated. But stay positive, believe in everything that we're doing, and I truly appreciate everyone in this room. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Robert Dolly in the biology department. I'm going to sit down because it's easier. So thank you, Terry, and thank you, Robin. This question is a little more Robin than Terry.
Okay, good.
So thank you for outlining all the great things happening on campus right now. Unfortunately, just all the great things happening on campus are happening while our country is in the midst of an authoritarian takeover of the U.S. government. Judicial orders are being defied, immigrants are being shipped without due process to slave labor camps in Central America, peaceful protesters are being threatened with prison by the Attorney General, and universities themselves are under attack. Columbia University, and I know you know this, threatened with the cutoff of federal funding, has surrendered its independence to the Trump administration, but to no avail. No funds have been released, and Trump's demands continue. So I know, Robin, that you understand the threat we face to our independence, and I greatly appreciate last Friday's email reiterating your support and the board's to academic freedom at Ursinus. But this is an internal document. So far, only 5 college presidents, so far as I know, out of hundreds, have publicly defended higher education at its moment of greatest peril. There's Princeton President Christopher Eisgruber, alone among the Ivies, publicly defending Princeton's independence. And among liberal arts colleges, there's Wesleyan President Michael Roth and Mount Holyoke President Danielle Hawley. A couple more, that's it. In his inaugural address, John F. Kennedy said, "In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility," he said. "I welcome it." So, my question is, when will you, preferably in collective solidarity with fellow college presidents, make your public statement committing Ursinus College to its rightful, constitutionally protected independence, and in doing so in a way that commands public attention and supports those few courageous college presidents who have already taken this step? Thanks.
I appreciate that, Robert. Thank you. So you must be reading minds. So I've been batting things back and forth with Jen, who's our executive comms person, talking to Gundolf, as well as talking to my fellow presidents. One of the things that has been most difficult is getting my colleagues to be willing to say anything. And so then it's been, should it be my voice alone? Should it be Gundolf and I? Should it, but I want you to know I'm trying to find a mechanism. And if you have insights and suggestions to get this moment in time and Ursinus' very special place in this moment in time as a liberal arts institution, to get that voice out, right? To make it very clear that this is what liberal education is about, and that it is institutions like Ursinus and our mission and why we are founded that we exist, and now is our moment. So I appreciate that question very much, and it is very much top of mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Jordan, with just a friendly reminder. If you are in the room, if you can come up to the microphone here to ask your questions, we would greatly appreciate it. We also have the QR code, but I'd like to prioritize questions in the room first. So thank you.
I have a less philosophical question, less morally related. When it comes to the retention issues that the school is facing, 2 questions. Number 1, institutionally, what is the approach to fix that number falling? And secondly, I understand reaching each student, the idea of valuing each student. Are there any more practically implementable ways as professors that we can help with that? Is there sort of a boots on the ground
I'd
approach?
like to turn that over to Gundolf, because there's many ways that the faculty can help.
Thank you. Yes, we have an entire team collecting data, so the students who leave, who we lose, and have an exit interview with us, we collect the data, we look at it very carefully. We have a retention committee led by Samara Price that is looking at the levers that we can pull to have an impact, and we are working on specific first-year strategies because that's where we had the biggest loss. What can we do in the first year in and outside of the classroom to keep students engaged, to understand the early warning signs that we get, and to ensure that their combination of success across the board, academically, outside of the classroom, their sense of belonging is something that we strengthen so that whatever situation they face doesn't become the one thing that's added to their experience burden and then they leave. We know also from our colleagues in health and wellness and from our admissions teams that the students who come with a lot more challenges already. So that's added to the first year experience. So I appreciate the question, and the groups that I mentioned will also share this out. Maybe I can preview this, although there are colleagues who can speak to this in greater detail. Over this coming summer, the Academic Affairs team will lead, together with the Teaching and Learning Institute, some workshops focused on our course design, some of the instructional designs that we have, because this is what we also learn from students, what they're struggling with, right? To lower any barriers that we can identify so that we can work on their success.
Terry, don't go away. My question's for you. So, Bree Berry, Environment and Sustainability. So, when you're talking about what you can do in environment and sustainability, we were trying to find all these efficiencies that it turns out were not very efficient. Like, we were figuring out when we needed to rent vans externally versus internally, and doing some really wild things to cut back on printing that took a lot of time. And it turns out those were not effective solutions for actually reducing how much we were spending. And I'm curious how we can figure out what effective ways for actually being efficient are. Because it's not super clear to us sometimes in departments where the best place is to invest our time and energy in finding those efficiencies.
So are you talking more about energy efficiencies or just general efficiencies?
No, so we travel a lot of places with the NVS, right? And so we were like, oh, you know what? It saves us money if we get an external rental van instead of a college van because of the way mileage is calculated for some trips. And so we were doing these really complex calculations in an attempt to save the college money. And they were like, oh, it actually does not save the college any money to do this because we didn't understand how the process worked.
Right.
And so there are times when I think we might all want to contribute and be helpful, but we don't literally know how to do that because it's unclear how money flows around in the college.
So that sounds like more education would be great. I know what you're talking about in particular. This was an example that because when you use the college-owned vehicle, you get charged mileage. And I could go out and rent a car that costs less. But the charge from the college-owned vehicle, it's what I call funny money. We're moving we're hitting one department for an expense and the other department to a revenue. It costs the college nothing except the gas that you put in the car to use a college. So that's what you're referring to. I would say you have to think of if there's particular situations, you could always reach out to the finance department or myself that we can help explain things more on how certain things operate. If you are, sometimes it's, why am I doing this, right? Does this make sense that I'm doing this? What's the purpose of what I'm doing? Just because it's been done for the past 15 years sometimes doesn't even mean that it needs to be done. I mean, we're finding that in our own department where, we have people working on these schedules and you kind of get down to well, why are you doing it? Well, I don't know. It's been done for years. So, trying to use our time more effectively and just trying to be more smart about spending. We're trying to look at things holistically at the college to try to figure out ways that we can spend our money on certain things, whether it's through a preferred agreement to try to drive some prices down on different goods and supplies.
Hi, thank you for, I'm really loud. Kate Keffen, Director of Sustainability. Thank you so much for all of this. I was trying to do math, and I just shouldn't be doing math on my laptop. So I believe I heard 5 million negative cash flow. I might not be using the right terms. And we're budgeting for 350-ish first-year students. I guess my hypothetical question is, if we get to 400, right? Every student does matter. And if we do find our path forward to 400, how does that affect the projected modeling of the budget?
So the quick way to think about this is every student brings in net, this is on an average, right? Obviously, some are more, some are less. But each student brings in about $35,000 a year currently. So 10 more students is $350,000. So you can multiply the math out that way.
Hi, thank you all. I'm not sure who this question is for, but I know enrollment has been a big focus. Obviously, it's a sore point, right, that we really need or try to increase our enrollments. And I know the demographic cliff plays a role. I know also a lot of people here who have college-age students and who have been like taking their child around to different liberal arts colleges knows that the academic program here is not inferior to other colleges. Yet, like the applications we're getting here are way different. So just for example, my oldest went to Lafayette College. I did not feel that the academic program at Lafayette College was superior to the academic program we offer here. However, they had a record number of applications this year, over 10,000. And we're getting like much less than that, right? So how do we get all those students who won't be accepted at Lafayette to be also applying here? I don't know who the question's for, but that's only an hour away.
Here comes Lauren.
So I think that's a good question, and I think the reality is it's not an easy answer. I saw that article about Lafayette, and it's very easy for colleges not to tell you a whole story. We don't know what they're actually doing either. Something out there called direct admission, where you can offer admission to a certain population of students based on a GPA that maybe is targeting a population. We don't know if they're doing that. So some of the things that are put out in the news media for lots of colleges and universities is good news, but it's not always the real picture. So I always want to address that, because not everyone understands those pieces could be not real apps, because those direct admissions yield at probably to 2 to 4% percentage to yield to enrolling, versus what would be our overall yield, which would be somewhere between 12 and 16%. For a school like Lafayette, they do have right now still better name recognition overall. And so what we're trying to do in the admission world and the recruitment side is making sure that we get to students earlier on. I know I've presented on this a couple different times, but we need to be a household name the same way Lafayette, Lehigh, those types of schools are, because students are looking at that tier of school because the selectivity rates of your higher schools has gotten even more selective. So students are looking at more, and hopefully vertical schools, so top end school to a safety school, but they're actually looking a lot across the board at same level schools and applying to those types of schools. So applications are increasing, but the number of students isn't. So I have a good friend at Tennessee that their acceptance rate went from around 50% to about 20% in 2 years. That has nothing to do with the faculty, the expertise of anyone on campus. That is app numbers alone. So goal is be a household name for younger students, continue to highlight, Bree and I were just messaging back and forth, all of those great academic specific awards we're winning, to be on the radar for our smarter students and students that are more ready to go to college by sophomore, junior year, to get on their radar earlier, which then allows them to look at Ursinus in their senior year as opposed to be that fallback school. It's going to take years to try to move the needle. Apex will help. We've gotten really, really great feedback at every event we've gone to, parents it's resonating with, high school counselors it's resonating with. So being able to leverage that, helping them understand, and then also moving the needle to get more at the younger age is the goal for us to be able to get to more of that steady state, even with the enrollment cliff, which we know is a reality as well.
We do have several questions online, so I'll try to get through a couple of them in the last few minutes here. This is probably for Terry. There were several questions about the W-2s, when we'll receive the corrected W-2Cs, and can you explain a little bit what happened with the W-2s?
Sure. So in the announcement, we said the W-2s would be out on what day, Lachelle? Monday, and we are on track for that day. They'll be available electronically on Monday. We have had daily calls to make sure that everyone is on track. We're checking and balancing, and I know Lachelle, Jared are just really going above and beyond their duties here, so thank you. In terms of what happened, it had to do a lot with conversion and implementation of Oracle. Certain balances weren't transferred from the old system to the new system. Some made it, some didn't. There were errors in how your pay was calculated on a state basis and a local basis. So, for example, the emeriti, which is a, if you're over 40, it was a $50 contribution that you made to match the colleges. Before, it's not deductible for state, but when we configured Oracle, it was put in as deductible for state. So that caused some differences. At the end of the day, what's withheld is withheld, right? And you'll get your W-2s that will show your state wages and your local wages, and hopefully this will be it, and it'll be done. And you know, I sincerely apologize. It's been awful and a lot of work, and I appreciate everybody's patience.
This will probably be the last one. This is for Robin. In the past, you've expressed your commitment to not cutting academic programs. Do you stand by your commitment?
So the academic programs are the purview of the faculty, so yeah, it's... Yeah.
Try to grab one more. Terry, please explain how we are at a net loss, but have positive cash for projected 2025.
Oh, sure. So certain expenses that you have don't cause cash to go out the door. So, for example, depreciation. So we have about $6 million of depreciation each year. Depreciation in accounting terms, let's say you buy furniture, it's going to last 5 years, and that value of that furniture is $50,000. You would depreciate 1/5 of that every year for the next 5 years. So that's depreciation. So it's a paper entry. So that doesn't cause you to use cash. There's also things that cause you to use cash that aren't expenses. So if you have to make a principal payment on debt, that causes you to use cash. If you are buying or investing in capital, right, that's an asset that ends up on your balance sheet, so that's using cash. So that's why there's those differences. And our long-term goal is to get to break even on a GAAP financial statement basis, but right now our focus is cash. So we have to get cash neutral first and then move to GAAP break even.
Yeah, I guess so. I will. Yeah, I'm like looking at Casey. Like, what am I supposed to do? So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and for those of you online, thank you again. And I wish you the very best rest of the week. And we will see you shortly at commencement, just around the corner. So thank you, everybody.